Hello everyone and welcome to my weekly update with me, Richard Perry, market analyst at Hantec Markets. Each week I take you through the key events I believe will be driving your investments in the coming days. Now, moving into this week, we've got the dollar, which is driving a move higher. This, I think, is counter trend though. I think it's interesting that we're seeing this dollar strength coming even though the Fed's turned increasingly dovish. I think it's more of a play on the fact that economic deterioration around the world is sort of taking place, maybe not so much in the States, but I think that the move is still going to be just near term in duration, and ultimately I think that the market will be focusing more on how the US and China trade negotiations really go, and I think if they continue to progress well, which they are at the moment, I think ultimately that dollar rally is going to fall over. It's interesting that we've seen treasury yields which are rising and yield differentials which are sort of playing out a more dollar positive move at the moment, helping that dollar rally, but I don't know whether that will necessarily continue into as the sort of negotiations between US and China progress. So I think that's basically one thing that we need to watch. Now, in terms of Brexit, we've got Mrs May's Plan B on Monday. How does the UK Parliament respond to that? That'll be key this week. We're also looking at, as I said, sort of more on the dollar, how the growth differentials also play out with regards to the PMIs this week, how those PMIs are going to affect that dollar rally. Looking further ahead, we've got a load of central banks as well. We've got the ECB and also the Bank of Japan this week. We're looking out for whether the Bank of Japan changes its inflation forecast. That is quite a likely scenario where it cuts the inflation forecast with inflation around the world falling away. Japanese inflation is playing a part in that, but also how the ECB responds to this growth deterioration that it's facing in the Eurozone as well. Will Mario Draghi pull a more dovish figure and further sort of put back potential for ECB rate hikes in 2019? Now, on Forex markets, the dollar strength obviously is having an impact through euro dollar, dragging euro dollar lower. The euro is not performing especially well anyway, with that economic deterioration that it's facing, and it'll be interesting to see if euro dollar can start to sort of gather support, because previously corrections in the euro dollar have started to be used as a buying opportunity. That could change if the ECB is sort of gives a little dovish tilt once more. So we're looking out for that on Thursday, but ECB monetary policy could have an impact whereby that resistance on 14.20 is going to be key and watched on the euro dollar. In terms of cable, Brexit is going to be continuing to be a key factor here this week. We've got, as I said, the reaction that UK Parliament is going to give to Mrs May's Plan B. How the markets respond to that, it seemingly seems that the UK is sort of moving towards a more Brexit, more of a softer Brexit. In that, through March, maybe we could get an extension of Article 50, maybe a move towards the second referendum. These are all sort of softer Brexit scenarios that will ultimately give sterling a lift. But if Mrs May sort of continues to remain steadfast in her first plan, which seemingly was dead in the water, she could try and somehow rehash that, and that would not necessarily help sterling, I think, this week, so it's worth watching there. Obviously the BoJ is going to have an impact on dollar yen. So in terms of equity markets, well, the sort of prospects, or the improved prospects, of US-China renegotiations on the trade dispute are helping equity markets higher. US earnings season has started off well as well, so that's again boosted S&P 500. Sharp gains, actually, sharp recovery gains we're seeing across Wall Street markets. Can they continue? S&P 500 through 2,600, sort of eyeing 2,700, which again starts to where to be the next sort of pivot area, 2,715 on the S&P 500. DAX is through 11,000, broke out on Friday. That opens to 11,725 to 11,865 as a next pivot line. The pivot line at 11,000 becomes supported this week. Again, levels to watch. FTSE above 7,000, opens 7.2 to 7.3. In terms of commodity prices, well, again, still two factors playing on commodities. You've got the risk appetite angle and also the dollar strength. Risk appetite is helped by the fact that the US and China trade dispute negotiations are going relatively well, so that improves risk appetite. That's not great for gold. The dollar also rallying is again not great for gold, so subsequently gold is starting to fall over. A move below 12.76 is going to be a near-term breakdown on gold. That opens the mid 1250s, and that's a move that could play out through this week. Is that going to be an area where we start to see the market supported again? Technically speaking, that's a good area where a buying opportunity could well come in. In terms of the oil price, it's interesting that we've seen the oil price continuing to rally, and that has been driven on a demand basis by the improved prospects of the US-China negotiations. Obviously, also we've got a supply side on oil to consider as well. It seems as though that the US inventories are starting to show more of a drawdown on the crude stocks, but also we've got the prospect that compliance on the OPEC supply cuts is fairly decent at the moment. So all these are adding up to a continued rally on oil, and that's what we've seen through last week into this week. So in terms of data points this week, sort of looking at it's sort of away from the US really. You're looking at UK wages on Tuesday. That'll be important for sterling potentially, but again mainly focusing on Brexit, so maybe UK data isn't so important. And then we're looking at flash PMIs really. I think coming on Thursday being the big focus towards the back end of this week. Flash PMI for the Eurozone have been pretty poor recently, and that's been one of the reasons why the euro struggled so much. So if those PMIs start to bottom out, which the expectations suggest they might do, then we could start to see a bit of support coming for the euro. But how does that play out against the US flash PMIs as well? So something to consider there. And just on Friday we've got the German EFO data. Again, German EFO is a strong lead through to German growth, which has been pretty disappointing in recent months. So if the German EFO starts to surprise to the upside, we could start to see some support for the euro. But watch out for that number on Friday. So lots to consider as always, but I wish you good luck in your trading this week, and I will speak to you next time. Thank you.